Hold a $100 bill in your hand. The paper costs pennies. The ink is cheaper than coffee. Physically, it is nearly worthless. Yet you will surrender hours of labor, food from your table, or the keys to your home in exchange for this fragile rectangle. A plastic card contains no gold, no silver, yet swipe it and you claim ownership of automobiles, medicine, or the work of hundreds of strangers. Numbers flicker inside computers, weightless, invisible, and determine who eats, who builds, and who rules. Why? Why would any rational human trade something real for symbols, for paper, for digits? To understand this, we must travel backward. Before Wall Street, before banks, before dollars, before coins, before the very concept of currency as you know it. We must return to the moment when human civilization grew too large for memory and value had to be invented. Here is the first surprise. The textbooks are wrong. We did not begin with barter, trading chickens for shoes, then grow frustrated and invent money. Ancient societies operated through webs of reciprocity, gift exchange, debt, and social obligation. Barter occurred, but it was not the engine of early economies. Money did not emerge from the inconvenience of direct swap. It emerged from the crisis of scale. When human communities grew from villages of kin into cities of strangers, memory failed. You could no longer remember that the merchant owed you grain, or that you owed the temple barley. Trust between strangers required proof, and proof required a revolution. 5,000 years ago, in the dust of Mesopotamia, a farmer delivers sacks of barley to a temple storehouse. A merchant weighs out silver to settle a debt. Between them stands a scribe, pressing a reed stylus into wet clay. The tablet records, this much grain, this much silver, this obligation, that claim. The shekel was not yet a coin you could pocket. It was a unit of weight and account, a standardized measure that allowed value to be calculated, stored, and transferred across the complex bureaucracy of the city-state. Before money lived in pockets, value lived in records. Clay tablets became the first information system for wealth, transforming vague social memory into hard, transferable data. But clay is heavy, and tablets do not travel well. The system worked inside the city walls, yet trade was about to stretch across mountains and seas, and the records themselves became the constraint. Around the 7th century BCE, in the kingdom of Lydia, metallurgists heated electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, and struck it with dies bearing official symbols. Here was the solution to the weighing problem. Every piece carried the stamp of authority, guaranteeing weight and purity without the merchant's scale. The metal mattered, but the stamp mattered too. For the first time, value was portable, recognizable, and backed by political power. Coins spread through Greek ports and Persian roads, fueling armies and tax collectors, creating network effects. The more people accepted the stamp, the more valuable the stamp became. Yet this solution concealed a dangerous weakness. Who controlled the mint? In Rome, emperors discovered that the stamp could lie. Nero and his successors began reducing the precious metal inside each coin while keeping the face value unchanged. Debasement was not invention, nor did it alone collapse the empire. But as silver content fell, confidence frayed. The number stamped on metal means nothing if people stop trusting what the stamp represents. The psychological anchor was cracking. As Roman roads fell into ruin, medieval merchants faced a different terror. A trader in Venice needed to move wealth to Constantinople, but gold attracts bandits like magnets. Horseback caravans carried locked chests through mountain passes where every shadow concealed a knife. The solution emerged in Italian counting houses, the bill of exchange. Deposit your gold in Venice, receive a document. Present that document in Constantinople, reclaim your value. The metal never moved. The claim did. Money was becoming abstract, transforming from a physical object into a relationship, a promise, a debt recorded on paper. But promises require trust, and trust requires institutions. The question deepened. Why believe a piece of paper? The answer was being written in China, centuries before Europeans imagined it. Under the Song dynasty, merchants burdened by cumbersome iron coins began using paper instruments to transfer value. The state eventually issued paper currency itself. When Marco Polo traveled through the Yuan Empire, he witnessed not invention but astonishment. Farmers exchanging real grain for slips of paper bearing the Khan's seal. Why would they? Because the paper represented a claim on a system larger than any single transaction, backed by the credibility of the state and the expectation that others would accept it tomorrow. Paper money was not primitive. It was sophisticated, and it was fragile. When that trust evaporated, paper burned. When it held, Empires moved. Now the story turns American, and the scale becomes intimate. Colonial shopkeepers faced monetary chaos. British coins were scarce, Spanish silver dollars circulated alongside Dutch guilders, and colonists paid taxes in one currency while buying groceries in another. A single day might see wampum, tobacco, foreign coin, and handwritten promissory notes changing hands. This fragmentation was not merely inconvenient, it was dangerous. Revolution was coming, and wars require not just courage but uniforms, muskets, food, and ships. The Continental Congress lacked the power to tax effectively. Their solution was paper, continental currency. At first, it worked. Soldiers accepted the notes because they believed in the cause and expected redemption. Then the printing presses accelerated. War disruption, counterfeiting, and limited fiscal backing eroded confidence. A farmer accepted paper for grain, then heard it was depreciating. Next time, he demanded more. Sellers saw prices rise and raised them further. Expectations became economic reality. Fear fed inflation, which fed more fear. The continental dollar collapsed not merely because it was printed, but because the belief that sustained it died. 80 years later, the stakes climbed higher. The United States tore itself apart in civil war, and the Treasury faced expenditures that dwarfed the founding era. The Legal Tender Acts of 1862 created greenbacks. Paper dollars declared legal tender for all debts. This was revolutionary. Money was no longer merely a claim on metal. It was a claim on the nation itself, enforced by law and backed by the expectation of the Union's survival. The question shifted: could Americans trust paper because they trusted, or were legally bound within the institutions issuing it? The gold standard provided one answer, but not the simple one. It was not that every dollar sat atop a one-to-one pile of gold in Fort Knox. Rather, gold convertibility provided an anchor, a constraint on issuance that built credibility. Yet this rigidity became a cage. When economies needed flexibility during crises, the golden handcuffs tightened, forcing painful adjustments. In 1907, the contradiction exploded. Crowds gathered outside New York banks, pressing against doors, demanding cash. Fear became contagious. Depositors withdrew, banks weakened, more depositors ran. The panic fed itself, creating the very collapse everyone feared. J.P. Morgan did not act from charity. He coordinated private financiers in emergency interventions, improvising stability in a system that lacked institutional guardrails. The question became unavoidable. Should the fate of a modern nation depend on private bankers meeting in library corners during midnight crises? In 1913, the Federal Reserve was born, not a conspiracy, but a mechanism for elasticity, a lender of last resort to stem panic before it became plague. Yet the gold anchor remained, and in 1929, the chain snapped. The Great Depression shuttered banks, trapped savings, and turned gold into an obsession. As deflation deepened debt and strangled commerce, Franklin Roosevelt's administration altered the domestic monetary relationship with gold. Executive Order 6102 required monetary gold delivery under specified terms, with exemptions and legal nuances, fundamentally changing how Americans, dollars, and gold coexist. If gold had symbolized certainty for millennia, what happens when the system itself redefines gold's role? By 1944, as World War II neared its end, delegates gathered at the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to design the post-war world. They established a system where currencies operated around par values linked to the US dollar, and the dollar itself was convertible into gold at $35 per ounce, but only for foreign official monetary authorities, not for ordinary citizens. The dollar became the world's central nervous system, supported by American industrial might, deep financial markets, and the expectation that the United States would honor its promises. Yet promises strained. By 1971, international dollar claims had ballooned while U.S. gold reserves faced impossible pressure. On August 15th, Richard Nixon appeared on television and suspended dollar convertibility into gold. This was the Nixon Shock, a decisive rupture, not an instant death, but the end of an era. The world's reserve currency was no longer officially exchangeable for a fixed weight of metal, and yet, the dollar remained central. Why? The answer was already shifting in wallets and purses. In 1950, the Diners Club card, initially a charge card requiring full monthly payment, not revolving credit, allowed a businessman to dine without carrying cash. The transaction required no physical money to change hands at the moment of purchase, only a verified claim, a promise of future settlement. Money was becoming invisible, a signal passed between computers, banks, and networks. Today, the vast majority of monetary activity occurs as electronic ledger entries, digits in databases, photons in fiber optics, software reconciling claims across continents. We have returned to Mesopotamia, but the scale is cosmic. 5 millennia ago, a scribe pressed obligations into clay. Today, financial institutions record balances in silicon. The reed stylus became software. The temple storehouse became server farms. The fundamental concept survived: records of value, claims, and obligations, maintained through trust. So what actually makes money valuable? It is not the paper. It is not the gold that no longer backs most currencies. It is not merely collective belief. Money is valuable because it operates within a web of institutional credibility, legal frameworks, taxation, productive economic capacity, and network effects. It functions because you expect that tomorrow, others will accept it for real wealth: food, shelter, labor, time. But money is not wealth. Real wealth is the grain, the house, the skill in your hands, the factory, the flowing energy, the productive business. Money is the measuring stick, the coordination mechanism, the memory system that allows strangers who will never meet to trade, to save, to invest, to plan. Humanity's greatest monetary invention was not the coin, the gold bar, the paper note, or the credit card. It was the creation of systems that allow complete strangers to coordinate around a shared measure of value, to move purchasing power across time and space, to transform individual trust into collective infrastructure. We did not invent money to hold wealth. We invented it to hold each other's promises across the millennia.